しなさい。
Hello everybody, Lady Luna here. I hope y'all are doing okay today. I see you clicked on this video to learn a few things about a certain dancing phoenix. Well, I'll be happy to teach you some of her safe moves, punishes, grabs, launchers, her stances, her heat moves, movement options, and anything else I could think of to help you learn. So, with that said, here's your lesson in Ling Xiaoyu, or the way I would play her at least.
こっちこっち。
Before I get into anything though, if you're new to Tekken or fighting games in general, you're going to hear a lot of different words and phrases depending on which game you play. In Tekken, you're going to most likely hear people refer to moves as a direction and a number. Now don't be confused, it's really easy. Simply put, any direction you input for your character to move, regardless of what you're playing with, is self-explanatory on the left. On the right though, you've got numbers, all 1 through 4. 1 means left punch, or LP, and it's going to be your square or X button, depending on what controller you use. 2 is right punch, or RP, being the triangle or Y button. 3 is left kick, or LK, X or A for the button. And 4 is right kick, or RK, which would be circle or B for you. So, if you hear somebody say something like FF2, they're basically saying you would press forward twice and triangle or Y on your controller. Not too hard once you study it, right? It's good general knowledge to have even outside of Tekken, but since the focus is on the game, let's jump straight into it. Ling Xiaoyu is a stance-heavy character, but let's focus on what she can do while standing, starting with her grabs. Xiaoyu has 5 different grabs you can do. This is her 1+3 grab, her 2+4 grab, her down forward 2+4 grab, her up forward 1+2 grab, and finally her forward 2+3 grab. In my opinion, her waning moon, the forward 2+3 throw, is her best throw because it puts her behind her opponent. This allows her to have combo routes and different options, depending on what you choose to do. Here are a few examples. With the new changes in this game, the heat mechanic is exclusive to Tekken 8. Pressing 2+3 allows you to go into heat first, and through heat smash, it enhances certain moves characters have. In Xiaoyu's case, she has 3 different kinds of moves while in heat. This is her regular heat smash. If you're back turned, her heat smash puts her into another stance. And finally, if you're still back turned, you can press 2+3 and hold back. She won't go into another stance. She also gains a few new moves in heat too. For example, forward 2-1-2. You can also hold back after forward 2-1-2 to cancel going into a stance. She can also do forward 1-2. And of course, you can cancel going into the stance if you hold back after the input. PS, if you press back twice, you can cancel the heat burst at any time. To conclude this section, here are all of her heat dash moves. To perform these, while in heat, do the normal input and immediately hold forward after to dash your opponent, starting off with down back 1. And last is back for 1. As a side note, Xiaoyu also has 2 different parries she can do. By inputting back 1 plus 3, you can parry highs and mids. If she's back turn, you can input down 1 plus 3 where it parries any lows. One down 2 is a good safe move for Xiaoyu and also a 10 frame punisher, meaning that any character that does a move that's negative 10 or higher can be punished by it. It's also plus 8 on hit and minus 3 on block. The good thing about 1 down 2 is that it leaves her in a stance, where you have options to do whatever you like. You also have another variation of 1 down 2 where you hold any direction so she doesn't go into a stance. 1 down 2 hold is plus 7 on hit and minus 4 on block. You might be wondering if it's better to go into the stance than keep her standing. And to that I say, it's ultimately up to you. In my personal opinion, I try to mix up the way I punish my opponent, either by going into the stance or stay standing occasionally. Down forward 1 is an excellent safe move for Xiaoyu and one of her best moves out of her kit in my opinion. Just like with 1 down 2, you can stay in the stance by not holding a direction. On hit, it's plus 9, and on block, it's minus 2. This move also crushes certain highs, meaning that it can duck under them since Xiaoyu ducks her head and moves to the side a little. Use this move whenever you can. Down forward 1 hold, like its other variant, is one of her best safe moves. You don't go into the stance for this, and on hit it's plus 7, and on block it's minus 4. I personally use both variants interchangeably for different mix-up options, so I recommend you do the same. 1-2-1 is a safe string or combination of moves for Xiaoyu. Despite the first 2 hits being highs that an opponent can duck, it's relatively safe because of its pushback. All 3 hits combined on hit is plus 14, and on block it's minus 9. Another neat thing about 1-2-1 is that you can delay the last move to catch your opponent by surprise if they like to press. Down back 1 is a good safe move for her as well. Without the highs from 1-2-1, down back 1 is also safe because of its pushback. On hit, it's plus 14, and on block, it's minus 9. It also puts Xiaoyu into heat, meaning it's a heat engager. She has several different heat engagers, but this one by far is her safest while not in a stance. Forward 2, like in the example I gave earlier, is another one of her many safe moves in her arsenal. On hit, it's plus 6, and on block, it's minus 5. Despite it being safe, it is rather linear, so be careful using it too often, as opponents will sidestep if they think you'll do it. Generally, for me, I use forward 2 as a surprise move for offensive opponents. Forward 3 is a good keep out tool for a defensive opponent who like the turtle, meaning they play slow and will try to chip away at your life. This move puts Xiaoyu into a stance, which is good because it gives you options for a mix-up. On hit, it's plus 6, and on block, it's minus 5. When I use forward 3, I like to use it for pressure when I have the advantage, but I use it for defensive players too, of course. 2-1 is also a good pressure tool when up close to your opponent. Just like with 1 down 2 and down forward 1, the move puts you into a stance without holding a direction. On hit, it's plus 7, and on block, it's minus 4. Be wary though, the first hit is a high, which can be ducked, but that's where the mid comes in to save you. 2-1 hold, like the other moves you can hold a direction with, is good when you use it close to your opponent. On hit, it's plus 7, and on block, it's minus 4. Just like I said earlier, I recommend you mix up the way you use the move against people, either by going into the stance or remaining standing. Down forward 4 is also a nice keep out tool, and one move I don't see many Xiaoyu players use often. Like forward 3, its range is good for people with aggressive playstyles. On hit it's +7, and on block it's -4. Be careful however, because the move is weak to sidesteps, so use it when least expected. Forward 3 is a rather special safe move for Xiaoyu. It's a knee, meaning it's not able to be regularly parried by somebody like Asuka for example. On hit it's +2, and on block it's -9. In my opinion, use forward 3 like down forward 4 in the sense of it being least expected, as most opponents will think you'll use the follow-ups after the move. Standing 4 is another move that should be used when least expected. It has some decent range for a safe move. On hit, it's +8, and on block, it's -9. You'll want to use the move sparingly though, as it's a high which opponents can duck. Normally, when I use standing 4, I also use it as a keep out move, as I find it better used at a distance in close range. 3+4 is one of, if not her safest standing moves. On hit, it's +3, and on block, it's -1. Crazy, isn't it? A special property 3+4 has is that it evades lows when used at the right time. But, let me say this, in my experiences of using the move, many people will press a while standing move right after because it leaves them in a crouching state, so be a little careful with your follow-up after the move is blocked. Up forward 4 is Xiaoyu's orbital like many other characters have in the game. An orbital is a jumping kick that crushes or evades lows. Her orbital is pretty safe, with it being +4 on hit and -7 on block. When I play as Xiaoyu, I usually go for her up forward 4 when I'm close to opponents, and it's especially better for me if the move evades a low that they're going to do. Back 3 is not only a safe move, but a move that's plus. On hit, it's +8, and on block, it's +3. As good as the move is, it is a high, so be wary using it often as opponents will duck it if overused. Back 1 is a neat little move that I consider somewhat safe. There are two variants of back 1, if you hold the input and if you let go, putting her into a stance. Back 1 by itself is a fast move, and is most useful up close to an aggressive opponent. It was a little hard for me to get it consistently, but usually, and depending on the circumstance, on hit it's either +1 or 2, and on block it's -11 or 12. Forward 4 like back 3 is another safe and plus move. On hit it's +13, and on block it's +1. It is a high like back 3, so be careful using it often. There is something special about forward 4, but I'll get into it a little later. 1+2 is a special safe move Xiaoyu has in her kit. The move knocks your opponent down, and there are a few options you can do if they're hit by it, like a combo or a follow-up. On hit, it's +20, and on block it's -7. However, be careful using this move a lot too, as it's pretty linear enough for opponents to sidestep if they guess correctly on you. Up back 2 has two variants like many of the other moves I already went over. This one puts her in a stance, and it leaves her opponent in crouch, whether they're hit by it or not. It's +7 on hit, and +6 on block. It can be sidestepped like its other variant. However, being that it puts you in a stance and it's plus, you get different options for you to pick and choose, so choose wisely. Up back 2 hold is just the other variant without going into a stance. On hit, it's +5, and on block, it's +4. As I've said with other moves that give her the option to go into a stance or not, use the moves interchangeably to mix your opponent up. Forward 4 1+2 1+2 is a string of 2 hits that are safe. You can opt for doing the first hit, but I recommend going for both of the moves because on hit it's +7 and on block it's -8. Another neat thing about the move is that just like with 1-2-1, you can also delay the second hit for people who like to press. Forward 2 is a niche safe move Xiaoyu has in my opinion. It shifts her to the left automatically if your opponent is hit by it, and has a few follow-ups guaranteed when hit. Speaking of which, on hit it's +4, and on block it's -5. Generally speaking, there isn't much to say about forward 2, so just mix up which safe moves you use on your opponent. Forward forward 4 propels Xiaoyu forward towards her opponent and automatically puts her into a stance when on hit. Like some of the other moves I talked about, up back 2 and its variant, 3+4, and a few others, it's an airborne move. On hit, it's +13, and on block, it's +9, another plus move in her arsenal. Despite it being linear like her other save moves, your biggest advantage comes if you hit your opponent, as the options in this specific stance are just as amazing as the other two. Down 1, like back 1, is a special move that I like to put quotes around before considering it safe. In fighting games, distance is always an important aspect when it comes to things like footsies or keeping your range. In Tekken, however, doing a move that can hit an opponent further away from you makes a move safe, in my opinion. On hit, down 1 is +8, and on block it's -5. So, what if you decide to do it up close to your opponent? What then? Well, you do have one option you can do, especially at the wall, and that's to press down right after. It puts her into a stance which can crush highs and certain mids. Be extremely careful, however. Even if I put Kazuya to do his 1-1-2 here, there are other characters who can beat Xiaoyu out of it if she decides to stay in her stance after down 1. So, be wary! Forward 3+4, 3+4 starts up as a forward roll to your opponent, with the second input being the move right after. You can actually opt for just doing the roll if you want to get closer to your opponent to close the distance, but obviously she can't block, so be mindful. On hit, it's +2, and on block, it's +8. Just like with down forward 4, it's not a move I see other Xiaoyu players use often, either because they're not aware of it, or they don't think it has value. It's pretty good when used for heavy pressure, and remember, plus frames are always your best friend. Forward forward 3+4 can be done in two different ways, facing forward and facing backward. For her frames facing forward, on hit it's +38, and on block it's -2, but this usually depends on the distance where you land, but still pretty safe. For its back turn variant, on hit it's +44, and on block it's +3, but distance always matters, of course. A few neat things about forward forward 3+4 is that it's not only a very evasive move since it flips over opponents, but the back turn variant can turn into an unblockable grab if you flip close enough to your opponent. Up forward 3+4, like many of the other moves I mentioned previously, is not only safe, but it has evasive and airborne properties too. For its frames, on hit it's +4, and on block it's -1. Despite it being a low crushing move, it does leave Xiaoyu in back turn, which you have options after, but be very careful of what you do next or of what your opponent will do. Last, but not least, is an honorable mention, running 3. While technically not being a safe standing move as it requires you to do the running motion, if you're fast enough, you can make it become like one. For a rather important move like running 3, it can be used in various ways, whether it be for pressure, keep out, or anything else. On hit, it's +29, while on block, it's +7. She will stay in her stance, even if your opponent blocks. Running 3 can be sidestepped or down jabbed if challenged, but later on, I'll explain a few things you can do if you're stuck in a stance. A while standing move, WS for short, is a move performed right after your character gets up from crouching. Xiaoyu has 6 while standing moves, some with different variants. Starting off the list, we have while standing 1-4. Despite being one of her slower while standing moves, it has some good damage, and plus it puts her into a stance for mix-up options. There are 2 hits, so you can always opt for doing just one instead of the full 1-4. On hit, it's +12, and on block, it's -10. If you're able to duck highs and lows well, definitely use while standing 1-4 whenever possible. Next up on the list is while standing 2. Of course, like many of the other moves Xiaoyu has, she has another variant, so I'm going to be going over all of them. Regularly, while standing 2 is a very fast move and is often used in neutral because of its speed. On hit, it's +7 or 8 depending on the range, and on block it's -3. Now with her other version, This time you hold 2 instead of just letting go. In both versions and variants of while standing 2, it turns into a launcher if your opponent is hit, meaning you can combo them right after. For the launching variant, on hit it's plus 38, and on block it's minus 3. I definitely recommend using while standing 2, not only just for a punish, but in neutral as well to catch your opponents off guard by its speed. I'll briefly go over while standing 2 hold, since it's just the other version without going into a stance. As I've said before, it's generally good to use the moves in neutral for its speed. Normally, the hold version on hit is plus 6, and on block it's minus 4. For the launching variant, on hit it's plus 36, while on block it's minus 5. Regardless of which version you use, be sure to mix up the way you punish with moves, especially when you're launching them. Moving on, we have while standing 3. It's the only plus move she has out of crouching state, and will always force your opponent to crouch even if they're hit or blocking. On hit, it's plus 6, and on block, it's plus 3. Despite there not being much to say about while standing 3, I'd say to surprise an opponent who tries running up on you to attack with the move. While standing 4 is one of her fastest moves out of crouch. Coming out at 11 frames, while standing 4 is best used as a punish when blocking fast lows. You can even get a combo after it if you're fast enough, but I recommend opting for the punish as it's easier to do. On hit, it's plus 20, and on block, it's minus 10, with it being safe for its pushback. As I said, unless you know your opponent is going to do a sweep, always opt for doing while standing 4 as your fastest punish for quick lows. Last but not least is while standing 1+2, 1+2. This is a new move Xiaoyu gained after her transition to Tekken 8. Just like her other variant of forward 1+2, 1+2, it's exactly the same, with the frames being plus 7 on hit and minus 8 on block. You can always opt to do the first hit, but as I recommended earlier, go for both. Remember, even with the other variant, you can always delay the string to catch your opponents off guard. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about all the lows you can do while she's either standing or sidestepping. With all lows in Tekken, they can be punished, but with many options to choose from, let's start off with her down back 2. Down back 2 actually got introduced in Tekken 7 as a new low, but enough about origins. Down back 2 is plus 5 on hit, and is minus 8 on block. Along with it being a fast low, its counter hit properties make it extra strong as it leaves you at a whopping plus 18, giving you a big advantage. Next on the list is down back 4. While it looks kinda silly, it's actually very strong, especially with its counter hit properties. By itself, down back 4 is plus 4, and is minus 12 on block. This means it can be punished or even launched by an opponent who has a 12 frame while standing move. On counter hit, down back 4 leaves Xiaoyu at a 14 frame advantage and has guarantee moves you can do after. For example, you can use forward 1+2 after the counter hit, which is Xiaoyu's shoulder, but I personally suggest you do back 4-1 as it's not only a heat engager, but it's also guaranteed too. Next up is down 3. It's a rather simple low, so I won't spend too much time on the details. On hit, it's minus 3, and on block, it's minus 12, which can obviously be punished or even launched. It is fast, so use it when least expected, but don't make it too obvious. Just like with down 3, Xiaoyu also has a generic down 4 like everyone else in the roster. To save the trouble of detail, on hit it's minus 4, and on block it's minus 15, but that depends on the range of where it's used. I will say that, despite it being generic, it's a long low for her to have, so use it for pressure or even keep out. As one of the most used lows you'll see a Xiaoyu player use, sidestep 4 has a reputation for a reason. With it being minus 2 on hit and minus 13 on block, disregarding how it can be punished or launched, You'll get the best usage out of it from how long its hurt box is and what you can do on counter hit, something I'll show later on. Finally, we have Full Crouch 3, or FC3 for short in this video. While being another long low Xiaoyu has, it's mostly used for Okazeme options after a sweep near the wall, aside from it being another one of her lows. On hit, Full Crouch 3 is -4, and on block, depending on distance, is -15 or 14. As a general rule of thumb for Full Crouch moves, always try to mix up your opponent by going for different moves that aren't just in one category. If you mix up your timing and whether or not you use mids, highs, or lows, you'll always gain the upper hand in the match. Let's go over all her standing launchers now. First up is Standing 3. It's a very fast launcher, especially on whiff moves. In the famous words of Mr. Croft, think of Standing 3 as Xiaoyu's electric, like what the Mishima characters have. On hit, it's +22, and on block, it's -11. Remember, all launchers in Tekken have more frames, meaning they can all be punished in some way, so be mindful of that in certain situations in a match. Next up is back 1+2. Those who are familiar with this move know that initially, the input used to be down forward 2-1, but it got changed in Tekken 8. Being that it's a 13 frame launcher while being one of her most used to whiff punish, on hit it's +29, while of course it's -13 on block. Be mindful of using back 1+2, or any launcher for that matter. However, a positive to come out of it is that back 1+2 also hits grounded opponents, whether it be from the first initial hit or the second ending hit. Up 4-3 is Xiaoyu's special hop kick. Not everyone on the roster has a hop kick, so it's why I consider it special, aside from it belonging to her of course. On hit, up 4-3 is +29, while on block it's -13, just like back 1+2. All hop kicks in Tekken crush lows, so if you anticipate a low coming your way, launch it with a hop kick. Up back 3 is a new standing launcher introduced for her in Tekken 8. It puts Xiaoyu into a stance automatically, so just remember that. On hit, it's +36, while on block it's -13. Despite there being different options you have while locked into a stance, this move is launch punishable, so only go for it as a whiff punish. Another big launcher to add is down 4-3, being Xiaoyu's sweep. To briefly go over, on hit it's a whopping +71, while on block it's -23. Because her sweep is a launcher that requires a lot of frames, it's a high risk, high reward factor. Be extremely cautious when using her sweep however. Even if it looks fast in game, you'll take the risk of getting launched in combo if your opponent blocks low long enough. There are a few things you can do when performing her sweep, but stay tuned to find out later. Finally, an honorable mention goes to a special kind of launcher for her. While your opponent is back turned, Xiaoyu can do her full crouch 3-2-1-4, in which the last hit launches your opponent. This is very situational and ultimately depends on where you and your opponent are placed and which map you're on, whether it has walls or not. It starts off with full crouch 3, one of the lows I showed earlier, so always remember that if you think you can land the full 4 hits. For the final segment of all her standing moves, I'll briefly go over the ones that can counter hit into a combo, starting off with 3+4. Next on the list is Sidestep 4. Then her orbital up forward 4. Up back 2 and its hold variant. The last hit of forward 2-1-4. The second hit of forward 1+2 1+2. While standing 3. And last but not least, while standing 2 in its Hope variant, excluding the regular launching versions. I'll briefly go over a few punishable moves that see many Xiaoyu players use, along with the frames. Be cautious using them often, as these are either launch punishable or can be regularly punished. To start, we have back 4-1, being minus 14. Next up is forward 1 plus 2, being minus 16. Standing 3 is next, being minus 11. Back 1 plus 2, obviously being minus 13. One down 2, 1 plus 2, with the extension after down 2 being minus 12. Her Power Crush, up back 4, is a move that can armor through other moves. It's also minus 13 on block. Down 4-3, being minus 23, extremely launch punishable. Up back 3 being minus 13, regardless of ducking in the stance or not. And finally, up forward 3 being minus 13 like I said earlier. To conclude her standing key moves, I'll list her key punishes along with their frames. And as an added bonus, some moves Xiaoyu can punish against Kazuya. Remember to always practice your punishes against different characters and their moves. As a tip, you can always choose to punish moves differently if they're minus 10 or higher for different mix-ups. Starting off, 1 down 2 in its whole variant can punish 10 frame moves on block. Since Kazuya's down back 1 and back 1 to minus 10, use this. Next up, standing 3 punishes all 11 frame moves and can launch them. Kazuya's forward 1-4 and down forward 3-2 are moves that can be punished since it's minus 11. Xiaoyu also has forward 1 plus 2, punishing all 12 frame moves. With that, she can punish his 1-2-2 and forward 2 with her shoulder. Then we have back 1 plus 2 and up forward 3, which can punish 13 frame moves. Kazuya's 1 plus 2 and forward 3 are minus 13. Finally, we have up back 3 and back 4-1, which punishes all 14 frame moves. He can punish his down forward 3-2-1 and back 1-2 with either move. Just as I mentioned at the start of the video, Xiaoyu is a stance heavy character, and having 3 to choose from, we'll start off with her most used stance, Art of Phoenix, or AOP for short. To go into AOP, you have to input down 1 plus 2, in which AOP crushes highs and certain mids. It also has a built-in side step right for evasiveness, so be mindful of that when going against opponents in your matches. Along with its natural evasive properties, there are other movement options Xiaoyu has in AOP. For starters, she can roll forward to gain distance quickly, especially if you're facing a turtling opponent. Just be aware that you can't block when you do. Another movement option is her side row grabs to the left and right. To do the one on the left, input 1 plus 3, and for the one on the right, input 2 plus 4. Just so you're also aware, you can cancel the grab at any time if you hold down. The only heat dash move Xiaoyu has out of AOP is AOP 2-1. With that knowledge in mind, let's jump straight into her safe moves in the stance. Starting off the list, we have AOP 4. Despite it being a fast mid, you can only hit it when up close to your opponent, or if they're at a wall. On hit, it's plus 8, and on block, it's minus 3. AOP 4 can also be used in various situations as a follow-up move as well, something I'll be showing later on with the launchers. Coming up next is AOP 1. AOP 1 has a follow-up if you press 2 right after, but I don't recommend doing so unless it's in a combo, as A, it's a high an opponent can duck, and B, it's punishable. On hit, it's plus 6, while on block, it's minus 5. There isn't much to say about AOP 1 aside from it being a safe mid out of the stance, but there is another follow-up string you can do after pressing the input. AOP 1 plus 2 is Xiaoyu's safest move out of the stance in my opinion. In older Tekken games, it had more frames, but it was still safe. In this game, the frames favor her much more. Speaking of which, on hit, AOP 1 plus 2 is plus 19, while on block it's minus 1. She's definitely come a long way in the series. However, just like with many other moves, it can be sidestepped, so be aware of that if you're going to use it often, which I always recommend mixing up different safe moves. Next up is AOP down 1 plus 2. Also acting as a launcher, a fun fact about the move is that in certain scenarios, AOP down 1 plus 2 can even duck mids, which is pretty crazy in my honest opinion. On hit, it's plus 42, and on block it's minus 8, with it having a slight pushback for safety. To add on to the list of special moves I talked about earlier, AOP up 4 can be considered one of those. AOP up 4 is special because it can be done twice, and you can also stay in the stance if done once, but if you do it twice, it's unsafe. For the frames doing it once, it's plus 1 on hit and minus 10, and if blocked twice, the second hit becomes minus 12. However, if you're going to do it twice, mix up your timing as it's a long range mid from AOP, but be mindful that after the second input, you can't go back into the stance anymore. Coming up next is AOP 1-4, which is a new move introduced for her in Tekken 8. Being that it's two mids, many people get hit by the second input because they think it's a high that can be ducked. All inputs on hit are plus 15, while on block it's minus 9. Remember that it starts off with AOP 1, so you don't necessarily have to follow up with the 4. It's just another option for you. Speaking of options, there are a few you can do if you choose to do the entire string. For example, AOP 1-4's second hit can be delayed, catching opponents off guard. Also, if you're further away enough for your opponent, and if you anticipate them doing a high, mid, or low, you can even parry them into a combo. Just be aware of how your opponent plays, and choose accordingly. Lastly is the move of another input we haven't discussed yet, AOP up 4 neutral 3. Now don't worry, you might be wondering what I mean by neutral. To perform this move, you hold up 4 out of AOP, let go of your directional button or stick, and immediately press 3 after. AOP up 4 neutral 3 initially was a combo starter in all other Tekken games it was present in, but now that Tekken 8 is here, it's now a move that knocks down and a combo extender. You can also stay in AOP if you press down or down 1 plus 2 right after. On hit, without staying in the stance, it's plus 29, while on block it's minus 2. If you stay in the stance, on hit it's plus 28, while on block it's minus 3. The reason this is excellent for Xiaoyu is that not only does she have options for follow-ups when the move is hit, but there are other things she can do if you choose to stay in AOP. For example, if you choose not to stay in AOP, you can do a few follow-up attacks when your opponent is knocked down, like 3+4 or up back 4. If you choose to stay in a stance, a few mid options you can do are AOP 1 and AOP 2, while a few low options you have are AOP 3 and AOP forward 4. Furthermore, choosing to stay in a stance allows you to duck highs in certain mids if the move is blocked. Just remember to choose accordingly to the situation and bring your best mix-ups. Moving on to her lows, she doesn't have many lows out of AOP, but they're still important nonetheless. Starting off the list, we have AOP forward 4. Just like with AOP up forward 4, she can do this low twice and go back to standing right after the second hit. On hit, it's +4, while on block it's -7. Remember that every move she can possibly do twice in AOP is unsafe with the second input, and be mindful of your timing if you choose to go about it that way, especially at the wall. By the way, while crouching, if you hold down forward and immediately press 4, she'll do AOP forward 4. So keep that in mind for future mix-ups. Next up on the list is AOP 3+4, being her sweep out of the stance. If you're a Xiaoyu enthusiast, you'll remember that the input for her AOP sweep was always AOP forward 3, but it got changed on her transition to Tekken 8 to make it easier for new players. On hit, her stance sweep is +1, while on block it's -33. But this isn't just any ordinary sweep. Xiaoyu sweep is special because it makes her airborne, regardless of it being hit or not. Many opponents may not know what to do to punish correctly. In 8, opponents can punish her AOP sweep with different moves to accommodate for her airborne status. Just keep in mind not to always use her sweep, even if it has special properties. AOP down 1 is another low I don't see many Xiaoyu players use out of the stance. There isn't much to say about the move other than its frames, with it being -1 on hit and -12 on block. There is something neat about AOP down 1, but it'll come just a bit later on. Trust me. Last but not least is AOP 3. AOP 3 is special as her left leg has a long hurt box that has quite a far reach for a low out of a stance. Depending on the distance, AOP 3 is +1 or 2 on hit, and -12 to 15 on block. There's another special property the move has, but as I said, I'll show the other properties in just a bit. Xiaoyu doesn't have many launchers out of AOP, so I won't spend too much time on the details, but I'll go over them all anyway. Doesn't this look a little familiar to you? Like I said earlier, AOP down 1+2 acts as a launcher, so I won't go over all the details I already mentioned. But enjoy the mini recap! Secondly is her hop kick out of the stance, AOP up forward 3. While being different from her standing hop kick, I would argue that this version is better because of the evasiveness of the stance. On hit, it's +27, while on block it's -17. Remember earlier when I said AOP 4 has another good usage? Well, at the wall, if you're able to land Xiaoyu's hop kick on an opponent, you can immediately press 1 after doing AOP up forward 3 and follow up with AOP 4 for a guaranteed hit. Try it sometime when you're pressuring them at any stage of the wall. Finally, ending off the launcher list is an input we already talked about? Yes, you heard right. AOP up forward neutral 3 can also be used as a launcher. Being the only low launcher she has out of the stance, to perform this version, do the exact thing I explained earlier on your controller or arcade stick, but this time you press 3 just before she lands on the ground. When you get the timing right, it'll sweep your opponent off the ground. On hit, it's +27, while on block, it's -18. It's a little crazy how even the same input can be completely different, right? Just like the normal launchers, I'll briefly go over the ones on counter hit out of AOP. Some of these will definitely look familiar. First up is AOP 1+2. Next is AOP down 1. And to conclude, AOP 3. Here are some things to be careful of since they're considered punishable. To start off, I like to go back to a string I showed earlier. AOP 1-2 is a mid-high string, which can be launched if the 2 is ducked. Next up is AOP 2-1. It's -12 on block, and all characters can punish it, if not launched, so be careful. AOP down 1+2, despite being safe, can be sidestepped to the left if overused. Lastly is AOP 3+4. Like I mentioned earlier, because Xiaoyu has a special knockdown after the move, it can be punished into a combo if blocked, but it's character specific, so look out for that. Finally ending off AOP moves, I'll briefly go over some punishes you can do. While in the stance, you can duck certain highs and mids like I said earlier, and because you have the option to, you can do a few things. For example, AOP 2-1. Secondly, AOP up 4-3. And lastly, AOP down 1+2. Adding on to the list of stances, Xiaoyu's second stance is Rain Dance stance, or RDS for short. Some people like calling it back turn, but enough about semantics. To go into RDS, you have to input back 3+4, in which Xiaoyu automatically steps to the right slightly, also giving the stance a bit of evasiveness. With that out of the way, let's get into some of her movement options before jumping to her safest moves from the stance. There are a few things you can do for movement in RDS. For instance, while crouching, if you input down back 3+4, she'll go into RDS. You can make her spin away from her opponent by inputting back 3+4 again. You can also make her roll forward in a stance, called Cali rolls by the way, by doing forward 3+4. And finally, you can make her spin to the foreground and background by doing up 3+4 or down 3+4. Another neat thing is that you can also do her normal grabs out of the stance by doing the very same inputs. But have you ever heard of a hop and throw? Well, if you input a forward motion right before the input for a normal grab, Xiaoyu will jump to her opponent and grab them. This also crushes any lows an opponent has. The only throws available as hop and throws are forward 1+3, forward 2+4, and forward 2+3, with each break being 1, 2, and 1+2 respectively. By the way, you can cancel a hop and throw at any time by holding down, regardless of which throw you use. She'll go into crouching. The only heat dash move Xiaoyu has in RDS is RDS 1+2 forward. Starting off the list, we have RDS 1, which I like to call her elbow to the gut. Despite there not being much to say about RDS 1, it does have an extension after the input, which is RDS 1 too, but the second hit is unsafe sadly. On hit, RDS 1 is +4, while on block it's -5. There's another special property RDS 1 has, but it will be revealed later down the video in due time. Next up is RDS 1+2. It's pretty fast out of the stance, as on hit it's +8 and on block it's -6. RDS 1+2 also has a few extensions to it. For example, pressing 1+2 again after the input knocks your opponent down, and if successful, you can either follow up with 3+4, or up back 4, or even down back 2 or down 3 for some low options. However, the second string of RDS 1+2 is unsafe, which is why I recommend doing it once. Only go for the second string if you anticipate your opponent not blocking. RDS 3+4 is another safe move for the stance. Along with the heavy different options, it's generally safe because Xiaoyu pushes herself away from her opponent. Initially, RDS 3+4 used to be RDS 3 in Tekken 7, but it got changed in 8. On hit, it's +10, and on block, it's -16. But don't fret. Like I said, there's different options for you to choose from. For example, at the wall, when performing RDS 3+4, you'll want to be careful depending on who you're going up against. A few things you can do, if blocked, are parry mids and lows, block and punish certain moves, and even spin away from your opponent by inputting back 3+4. But as I said, it depends on whoever you're fighting against, so just be aware and go to the lab to practice your best punishes. Coming up next is RDS back 3. It's also another fast move from the stance, but it is a high that can be ducked. On hit, RDS back 3 is +8 and -8 on block. Despite it being a high, I recommend going for it anyway, as most opponents you face won't expect the move for its fast speed. Just be aware of opponents who like to duck though. Remember earlier when I said RDS 1+2 has a few extensions? Well, this is the other one aside from the second 1+2 input. RDS 1+2 4 starts off as a mid into a high, with the high being plus on block and a heat engager. On hit, it's +16 to 19, while on block, it's +3. Funnily enough, many female characters have a variation of this move, Xiaoyu included. However, because the second hit is a high, it's slow enough to be launch punished if ducked, so be mindful. Lastly, we end off with RDS 3, which is called peg leg. Fun fact, the input for this move used to be RDS 443. Many players often mistake this move for being a low, but it's actually a mid. On hit, RDS 3 is +7, while on block it's -5. It does have counter hit properties which can knock your opponent down, but I don't consider it a counter hit launcher since you can't necessarily do a regular combo if hit. However, there are a few things you can do for follow-up or at the wall. For example, just as you get a counter hit, you can double tap forward to make Xiaoyu move forward and immediately follow with either RDS 3+4 or RDS 4 for guaranteed damage. If you're at the wall, there are other things you can do too. Here are a few examples. Not having many general lows from Rain Dance, Xiaoyu only has 2 good ones, and while technically having a third, the third one is very unsafe, so I won't put it here. The first low she has is RDS down 3, a low that's often used amongst many Xiaoyu players. There isn't much to say about RDS down 3 other than it being plus 7 on hit and minus 12 on block. It does have an extension where you press 4 after down 3, with it being a high, but despite it being a low-high combo, you can delay the second string if you choose to, so just remember that next time you're going up against someone. The second low she has out of RDS is RDS up forward 1, putting her back in the AOP. This particular low, while good for mix-ups, is very slow unfortunately. On hit, RDS up forward 1 is plus 12, and on block it's minus 7. If you don't want to go in the AOP, you can choose to cancel the low by inputting down right after the up forward 1. She'll stay crouched, so keep that in mind. While Xiaoyu technically has 3 different launchers in RDS, I would say she actually has 2, as one of them is situational and stage dependent. First up on the list is RDS 4, her most used launcher in the stance. As commonly used as it is, it's extremely unsafe on block and very launch punishable. On hit, it's plus 33, while on block it's minus 18. When going for this particular move, I strongly recommend using it against whiff moves or even after ducking mids or highs with a Cali roll as a punish. Next up is a situational launcher I mentioned, RDS 214. Just like her standing launcher of full crouch 3-2-1-4, this can only be done when your opponent is back turned. As a side note, the last hit of RDS 214 can be delayed, meaning when opponents are hit by the full delayed string, they aren't able to move or press anything. Ending off our back turn launchers is RDS forward 3+4 3+4. Oftentimes, many Xiaoyu players use this launcher after using a Cali roll to mix up opponents who try to punish her with highs or mids. But always be mindful of overusing any kind of launcher. On hit, RDS forward 3+4 3+4 is plus 40, while on block it's minus 11. Generally speaking, most opponents will go for a low if they notice you overusing it, but there's a few things you can do to stop this. For example, at the wall, you can always go for the launcher again because of its evasiveness. You can also do a regular parry and a low parry, or, on rare occasions, you can even go for a special parry in which he jumps off her opponent. P.S. The input for this is RDS forward 1+2. To conclude in rapid fire, here are her counter hit launchers in RDS, starting off with RDS 1. And finally, RDS down 4. To go over a few punishable moves in RDS, we'll start off with RDS 4. Since it's minus 18, it's definitely launch punishable, so don't forget. Secondly, RDS down 4 is very launch punishable as it's considered a sweep. And finally, RDS 1+2 4 can be ducked if anticipated, since the 4 is a high. Remember when I said you can use Cali rolls to move closer to your opponent? Well, remember that they can duck all highs and even certain mids. Because of this, you can punish certain moves with other launchers in RDS, starting off with RDS 4 3+4 3+4. And to end off, RDS 4. Finally, we're at the last of her stances, Hypnotist. While always having this stance in Tekken, in general, many Xiaoyu players before 8 rarely use Hypnotist. However, it's strongly recommended to now. To go into Hypnotist, you have to input down back 1+2 or up back 1+2. making Xiaoyu take 3 steps to the foreground and background. These 3 steps are very important in this dance, as each step taken makes moves stronger. Before anything though, did you know that Xiaoyu can parry opponents by doing the same input to go into Hypnotist? When you do, she'll go into the stance for more options, but it's a tight window, so don't forget. With that, let's jump into all the moves you can do. The only heat dash move Xiaoyu has in Hypnotist is Hypnotist 2. Starting off the list, we have Hypnotist 2. Being a heat engager and one of her most used moves out of the stance, in my opinion, it's a strong move even if you do it with 1 step. Speaking of which, with 1 step, on hit it's plus 43 and on block it's minus 4, with its safety coming from a large pushback. With 2 steps, on hit it's plus 45 and on block it's plus 5. And finally, with 3 steps, on hit it's plus 45 and on block it's plus 9. While taking more steps makes moves stronger in this stance, I highly recommend going for just 1 step when doing a move. Despite not always being a plus, any mids from Hypnotist are always safe. The only low Xiaoyu has out of the stance is Hypnotist 3, a new low introduced for her in Tekken 8. While all lows are punishable if blocked, Hypnotist 3 is very special. With the more steps taken, it can either knock down your opponent or even launch them. But 1 step on hit, it's plus 6. With 2 steps on hit, it's plus 13 and it knocks your opponent down. With 3 steps on hit, it's plus 44 and it launches your opponent. Regardless of the number of steps taken, the low will always be minus 13. However, let's turn up the heat, shall we? While in heat, Hypnotist 3 becomes even stronger now, as with 1 step, it gives a guaranteed knockdown on hit, and if more steps are taken, it's a guaranteed launch. Remember that, and be cautious of those who like to duck. Disregarding the launching properties of the low with heat, Xiaoyu only has 2 launchers out of Hypnotist. Starting off, we have Hypnotist 4. On hit, it's plus 26, and on block, it's minus 2, regardless of how many steps are taken. Lastly, we have Hypnotist 3 plus 4. Being that its frames are plus 30 on hit and plus 2 on block, both launchers are highs that opponents can duck, so don't forget! Last, but certainly not least, is Xiaoyu's unblockable. You can only do it while in Hypnotist. To make her do her unblockable, you have to input 2 plus 3 as she's stepping. Like I said, the more steps you take, the stronger the move gets. Here are also a few combos you can do at the wall with her unblockable if your opponent rolls to the left or right. To end off as a reminder, every move has its ups and downs, and moves out of Hypnotist are no different. Hypnotist 3, regardless of how many steps are taken, will always be minus 13, so just remember. And finally, Hypnotist 4 and 3+4 are highs that can be ducked. Hypnotist 4 can be launched if ducked. If Hypnotist 3+4 is ducked, it can be punished, but launch punishes are character specific since Xiaoyu moves to the side. Now with the knowledge of all her key moves, in my opinion, here are some combos and wall combos to do with different routes to choose from. As a side note, if Xiaoyu is wearing green, it's a beginner combo. Yellow means intermediate, and red means advanced. But never forget to lab out your own combos! Ending off this tutorial, I've got a little bonus to add as an extra treat. Here's every move she can cancel, whether it be into a stance or not. Use this to add more options for your personal mix-ups. Hey everyone! Thank you so much for watching my Ling Xiaoyu tutorial. I know there's so many Tekken guides out there, but I wanted to give a clear and precise guide for her, so I hope you've learned a few things about the Dancing Phoenix. I wanted to also end off by thanking everyone who waited patiently for this video, since I did tease it a lot in the past year. I've had so many things happen in my life in 2024, with sudden health issues and having to accommodate for those. I've also had issues come up with my mom and having to care for her in a family emergency this past month, in which she was admitted to the local ER. Even with all those things going on, I didn't forget about you guys. Trust me. I've got a new Discord server too, so I can keep you all updated on life and content. All of that, along with all of my other social media links, will be below in the description. As excited as I am for the new year to come around, I look forward to bringing you much more content consistently if I can in 2025. Thank you so much for watching again! Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this tutorial with anyone who wants to learn Ling Xiaoyu. And please, be safe and love yourselves.